Everyone, it's Alexis. I hope you are doing well. Thanks for joining us again today. We are having a big sale on our website. The July Super Sale has begun and we've got tons of new products on there. Not new necessarily, but new to maybe some of you, but we've got products on there that are new to the sale, I should say. So those will be there. There's lots of stuff from chapter 1, chapter 2. There's some stuff from previous years. We've got a few making essentials on there, which I'm actually going to use a few in my make today so you can see some of the items that are in the sale. But I don't know about you, but I really love making cards, and especially textured cards. So I picked a few items today that are in the sale that I thought would be a cool way to show you how you can take your die cuts and add textural elements to them, or take a shape and make it textured. So I'm going to show you the card we're going to make. It is just a cute little water flower card. This is the layered water flower from chapter 2. This is included in it, and I love these layered flowers. We have one in chapter 1, chapter 2, and if you've checked out chapter 3, we even have a new one, the rose, I believe, in chapter 3. These are really cool because each individual layer cuts out, and then you kind of layer them up so you get a more realistic flower. So I'm going to show you how you actually assemble these types of flowers, but also you can see I've added some embossing right here of our embossing, glitter embossing powder, because I really loved the idea of adding a small textured element to it. And I've also done some embossing, 3D embossing, I should say, on this little piece. So first I'm going to show you the dies that I'm using. So this, like I said, is the layered water flower. It's from chapter 2. This is in the sale, and this die set comes with all of these dies. So as you can see, this is your main floral piece right here, the main element, and then this piece just cuts out some of the layered elements. And on the dies, you can see these little etch lines right here. Those will create what will be an outline for you to be able to layer pieces on top. So they're very nice and stackable. They have crease lines to show you where to add the layers, and it makes it for easy assembly for sure. But you can see like they come in layered elements so that you can layer up whichever way you want. I'm not going to use the water lilies or the water pads on this particular make, but I did want to show you that these also have layering elements as well, and that they have really nice crease lines in there as well. One thing I do want to say, when you're working with any of these types of dies where you're layering elements, especially when they're intricate, adhesive sheets are your best friend, because you can just back your cardstock, which I'm using our assorted cardstock. The assorted cardstock is in the sale, and I've backed the pieces with an adhesive sheet. That way, when you cut it out, you've made your piece a sticker, which will allow for it to just go down a lot easier when you're putting them together, especially when you see how detailed these are. You don't want to have to use liquid glue. You can use liquid glue, but it can be a real big mess. So I just recommend adhesive sheets, especially when you're working with layered elements. Then I've got our chapter 2 Adorned Tile 3D embossing folder. This one is such a cool folder. I love working with 3D embossing because there's a lot of potential for different things that you can do. This one is in the sale, the Adorned Tile, and I'll show you again kind of what the pattern looks like. I chose today to work with our texture roll. So if you don't know, we have texture roll that came out in a variety of colors. So we have 3 that are kind of more neutrals. So we have white, gray, and like a craft color. And then we also have metallics. So we have gold, rose gold, and silver. These texture rolls are perfect, as you can see, for 3D embossing because they're really sturdy. They emboss really well. You can't even tear them. So when you're 3D embossing, you're asking a lot of forgiveness in any surface that you're actually embossing with. So the texture roll actually takes the emboss without tearing, which paper you will find tends to do unless you wet it down. I still get these wet when I'm rolling them through. It just gives it a deeper impression when you're doing it. But these come in 12 by 48 long sheets. You get a lot of surface area for each roll, and they're perfect for 3D embossing. but you can also kind of stain them as well. So I did some ink just so you can really see the pattern and how it punches up. I just took a little bit of distress ink across these and it went from that to that. Just so pretty. I just wanted to show you what the potential is when you're 3D embossing. And then the final die set that I'm going to be using today is a nesting set. So this is our scallop circle. I am always a huge fan of any type of nesting die set, especially circles, because you just have so much versatility with them. But these are great things to have in any craft stash because you always need a basic shape, and these allow you to like layer them up. Just a good thing to always have on hand. So the first thing I'm going to do is die cut out some of my flower elements. So like I said, I have pre-adhesive backed these two pieces of cardstock. So this is Mermaid Kiss and this is Mint Julep. These are both from the Assorted cardstock. I'm also using some of our neutral cardstock, and both of those cardstocks are in the sale. So any of the paper you see me working with, that's in there. So I'm going to take the Mermaid Kiss and I'm going to cut out my main flower piece, and I'm also going to cut out one of my upper layering elements. And when you're cutting multiple flower pieces at once, what I'd like to do is cut my cardstock down to smaller, like a smaller surface area, so that I can actually cut a bunch of things all at once. So I actually already pre-cut this one, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But this one I would cut out of the Mint Julep, and then I'm also going to cut out kind of the smaller center pieces for the large flower. So there's two for that. Okay. And then I'm going to also cut out the flower center in this gold opulent cardstock. And because it's going through the adhesive sheet, I'm just going to run it back through to make sure it really cut through. Normally you only have to run it through once, but since it's got that extra layer, I'm going to just be safe and have it do that. So got those die cut pieces. I've already also cut these ones out of some different colors as well, and I'll show you those in a little bit, but I've pre-assembled these because you don't need to watch me put them all together, but they're very simple, and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so now that I've got my die cut pieces, I'm going to set those off to the side. I like to get all of my machine work done first so I can get everything out of the way and then start assembling. So I'm just going to get these out of the dies real quick. If you don't have a die pick handy, I couldn't find mine just a minute ago. Our little fine detail tool on the paper sculpting kit works perfect. With the punch holes, you can just push your elements out. Okay, so I think that's all of my pieces. I'd like to have a clean surface area when I'm working. Okay, and the next thing I'm gonna do is I wanna 3D emboss my scallop circle. So I've pre-cut one of my texture roll, the white texture roll, with a scallop size that I like. And like I said, I'm gonna get it wet and just spritz it lightly on both sides with the water. And then you'll see that this is the mountainside. So that's where I want to place my texture roll so that it impresses up into the backside, so that the front is where it becomes three-dimensional. So you're going to take whatever your platform is, you're going to take it down to the one that shows 3D embossing, and then you only need one cutting pad when you're doing 3D embossing because it's a thicker folder. So you want to put them in at a slight angle. It just makes it easier to go through the machine. And typically we say with 3D embossing you want to run it through 3 times, but with texture roll I find you really only need to run it through twice. It also depends on each machine because some machines have more pressure and they don't require as much. Look how beautiful that is. So I've got all my die cut pieces. Now I'm going to show you what I did to create some fun textural elements on each of these small pieces. I'm just going to get my machine out of the way. Okay. So like I said, I added embossing to the top of some of the portions on my flower because I wanted to create a little bit of dimension, but in a texture. You can also do this with glitter if you wanted to. I chose to do it with embossing powders. So I've pre-cut all of my layering pieces for this particular die, and what I did is I heat embossed some of our mint julep. I cut out the mint julep cardstock, and then I added mint julep embossing powder to the top, and I heat set that. And then these are already adhesive backed, so they're just easy to put on. So what you'll see is you can see these crease lines all through here. Those are essentially your guidelines for putting down your elements. So I can see that I want to line these up with those lines. And because I already adhesive back this, it's just going to stick right in place. But the nice thing about adhesive sheets is they're also forgiving. So if you mess it up a little bit, then you can just peel it up and re-peel it down. Or not re-peel it down, but put it down again. So you can see how easy that is. I did all of those smaller pieces ahead because I knew that they were a little more intricate and would take a lot longer to show on camera. So I just wanted to have those ones in place. I am going to show you the technique in just a minute of how I actually got this. So again, I followed the guideline, the etch marks that match up with each of the elements, and I'm just putting them into place following those guidelines. Okay. So there's that. And then you can see I've got this large portion right here. Now, that is where this part's gonna go. I decided not to do anything to that back piece because I wanted the front part to stand out. So this one, I'm just gonna take the adhesive sheet off the back and lay down, following these etch marks right here. Okay. And you can see with the adhesive sheets how it just makes it so much easier to lay it all down. Now, before you put any more layers on, there's a small little notch right here, and that is for this little piece to go in. So I'm just gonna add some liquid adhesive to the back of that real quick because I did not prep that one with adhesive. Okay. And like I said, I'm just going to follow the guideline right there and place that in. Now that's going to mostly be covered by the upper element. So now with the upper element, I am going to add what I did to the outer edge, I'm going to do to this top one. So what you'll need for that is an embossing ink pad. I've got our mint julep embossing powder, and it's good to have like a funnel tray or whatever will catch all of your excess embossing powder so you don't waste it. And what you're going to do is take your die cut piece and push it down into the embossing ink. Now I like to use my tweezers to do this. You could also place this on a piece of paper and then just stamp on top of it. I find I get more ink on it when I do it this way, and I can make sure all those little small areas get inked pretty well. And you're just going to want to use that and push it in, and I can tell it's inked up, and I'm just going to make sure and really ink it. You can also do this in layers to get like an enamel effect. So you would do this, heat set it, and then you would put more ink on top of it, do the embossing powder again, and then heat set that. So I've got my little piece done, and then I try to grab it by the outside edge so I don't get the powder on my hands and then just tap off the excess. Okay, get this out of the way. And then I've got my heat tool, and this is where your tweezers come in handy. So I'm just gonna put this, especially the reverse action, they can hold it in place while you heat set it. So I always recommend, I find with heat embossing, you can start by heating the back, and that tends to then heat the front, set the front faster, but if with the adhesive sheet on the back, I can't do that. So what I always suggest is just let your heat gun run for a little bit and get warm, and then emboss it. It's a really subtle effect, but having that glitter in there, it just adds a nice little texture to your floral. Just gives it a little something extra. So now that that's done, I'm just going to peel off the adhesive sheet on the back and then lay that piece following the guidelines on here and line this up. Doing this upside down, so I really hope I am seeing it okay. And then my final element, now because I put heat embossing on top of that, I've covered up my guidelines for the top. So if you do that, just kind of get a gentle reminder of where those guidelines are. Since I've made this one before, I know where this one goes. And I'm just gonna lay that final piece in on the top. And there you have your layered water flower with some embossing powder. You could do different tones and really amp it up. You could do glitter if you want a more, I don't know, in your face kind of element. So now what I'm going to do is I have got some of our navy cardstock from the neutral set, and I've just put some of our foam tape on the back, and I'm going to add this to the card front. Okay. And then I'm going to add foam tape to the back of this one. I think foam tape is a really nice way to just give some subtle dimension. And if you really want more dimension, you can double up the foam tape or even triple it here. Come on. There we go. Okay. And I'm just going to center this on the card front. Now, the other pieces I pre-cut. I did have two of these. There it is. So these were the other flowers I was telling you about. So this is also a layered flower. I cut the bottom in our Mango Tango, or not Mango Tango, sorry, Banana Blast cardstock. And then I did our Limoncello cardstock on top, but I did our Limoncello embossing powder on that layered element so that it had a different textural feel. And then I did a Mint Julep and a Mermaid Kiss cardstock for the leaf portion. So I want to lay these in to kind of give that height to the card, but once I lay them in place, I'm going to just snip off the length because I'm going to let that hide behind my flower. And I'll just add a little bit of express glue to the back of these to kind of hold them in place. But really the main floral is gonna hold them in place with the foam tape, but this is just so that they don't go flying off while I'm getting the main flower ready. And then I did put adhesive sheet on the back of this, but I actually want this to have a little bit of height. So I did that on the other one, but this one I'm just gonna lay in place. Okay. And then you can just add a nice stamped sentiment. Like I said, you can add a little bit of foam tape to the back right there, give it a nice additional pop if you want to. Or if you want to just make your life easy, just do adhesive sheets all the way through. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial. Like I said, our super sale is going on our websites right now. There's tons of great product on there. Even a few of these things are in there. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below. We're so happy to help direct you wherever you need or to answer any questions about technique that you might have. I really hope you guys have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you guys again.